This is the Louie T Network. You are now officially in the lab room. It's that time again. It's that time again to go hard in the off season, cause we trying to win. We gon' go so hard, we don't take no days off. Hopefully one day it's all gonna pay off.
Who else could it be but me, your man, Louie T? Welcome to the 2017 NFL Draft Wrap-Up Series, where your man Louie T aims to break down all 32 teams in the National Football League's 2017 NFL Draft using our baseball grading scale: single, double, triple, home run. There are no strikeouts here in the Draft Wrap-Up Series. We cannot tell how these players are going to pan out, and I don't want to discount any of these young men before they get their chance in the National Football League. And so we will get a score for each and every single player selected in X said team's draft. We will then apply bonuses when necessary, tally up all of those scores, divide by the number of picks, which will then yield us an overall grade for that team's draft. We'll then move on to the next team in the series, picked by you. That's right, you, the viewer out there, in total control, as this is the up format, or as I like to call it, the you pick format. Simply be the first in the comment section of this and future videos stating two things: the phrase next and the team you'd like to see next. Couple of examples: Bills next, Buffalo next, Bills next, Buffalo. You get the drift. Don't be too cute, don't be too wordy, because again, these comments are coming in lightning fast. You want to be first, you gotta be efficient and as quick as possible. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Make sure you turn on notifications, not only on YouTube, but also on Twitter. That's going to help you get the advantage and get in there first. So with that being said, let's talk about a draft that I feel like went under the radar. A lot of people aren't talking, and maybe when you don't make the playoffs each and every single year like the Buffalo Bills, nobody, and I mean nobody, misses the playoffs like the Buffalo Bills. So when you don't make the postseason, it is easy to just sweep teams under the rug. They've been somewhat dysfunctional. There's been a lot of different things with the change in ownership, and are they going to Canada? Are they going to stay in Buffalo? And so there's been a lot going on in Buffalo over the last 7 years or so. Head coaching changes galore, musical chairs with that going on. And so these are the types of drafts where it's easy to just kind of sweep a team in their draft under the rug. But I'm telling you right now, the Bills had a very fascinating draft. I was blown away, actually, when I sat down and studied what they did in this draft. I was floored at how well they came out of this draft. And again, I'm a huge proponent of going in and getting about 6 or 7 players. To me, no draft should have more than 7 players, because you, to me, can't have a great draft haul when you got more than 7 players. Because again, how many of these guys are actually going to make your team? And I know there's a such thing as developing guys for the future and having them in your system, and maybe they don't make your team, but they're on the practice squad. I get all of that stuff. But again, I'm looking for 5 to 6 guys that can become core members of my team, whether I'm talking special teams, a very viable backup at a key position on my football team, or a guy that's going to come in and start. May not be a Pro Bowler or an All-Pro, but he's a starter and a guy that's a fixture on my roster. Or you're talking about a star, and you're usually talking about a 1st or a 2nd round pick. Sometimes you unearth a 3rd or a 4th or a 5th round gem, but it's rare to get a guy in the 6th or the 7th round that's going to come in and be anything other than a special teams contributor on your football team and maybe a backup. But in most cases and instances, a 7th round pick probably not going to make your roster. And yet we see every year teams with 12 picks, 11 picks, 10 picks, and 3 of them are 7th round picks. Spare me that. I'd much rather see a team trade up in the draft, trade away late round draft picks to teams that value those, and move up in the draft. Get 2 3rd round picks, get 2 2nd round picks, get 2 4th round picks, take 2 5th round picks, move those draft choices up, give away the 6th and the 7th rounders in order to get guys that you really want, and come away with 6 or 7 good football players and just move on. That's what the Buffalo Bills did here. And I'm going to tell you right now, you're going to be surprised at the end when I give you the grade of how good this grade in this actual draft by the Buffalo Bills really was. Let's start, and it doesn't start out the way you would expect a draft with the kind of score that they're going to have. to start out, but it is what it is. They moved back in the draft. Remember, they had a top 10 pick in this draft. A lot of people thought they were going to take a tight end or a receiver or some kind of playmaker offensively, and they tricked everyone. They moved back, allowed the Kansas City Chiefs to come up, get the guy that they coveted at the quarterback position. They move all the way back to the 27th selection in the first round, and they take LSU cornerback Tre'Davious White out of LSU, and we're going to talk about him and what he brings to the table. And let's talk about him right now. Solid size and athleticism, to me, are the first pros for Tre'Davious White. You're talking about a guy that runs a 4.47 40. It doesn't seem like he's running extremely fast on tape. Seems like a guy that you can get behind, and he doesn't have the best makeup speed in the world. We'll talk about that a little bit later on, but he's got really good movement skills. His athleticism is good. His size at 5'11", 192, it's not ideal, especially in this new day and age in the NFL, where I remember, again, and I keep harping on this, and I'm going to stop at some point, but I just can't wrap my brain around it. And maybe I should understand, because I follow the NFL so closely. I understand why bigger is better at the cornerback position, but I don't understand why a difference in 1 inch is enough to relegate a guy to the slot. I get it when the guy's 5'10" or, shorter, that he's probably a slot corner in the league. I get that. But 5'11" used to be the going rate for a corner, and anything bigger than that, you say, hey, we got a big corner. Now it's been moved up to 6 feet, and anything, north of that, you got a really big corner. But 5'11", you probably can still get away with a guy playing on the outside at 5'11". 192 is a little disconcerting, especially for a guy like Tre'Davious White. We'll talk about that a little bit later on, but that's solid size. I think you can still play out wide at 5'11", 192. We'll talk about that and his prospects at the next level playing out wide. But the athleticism is there. He can run, he can move, he can jump, he can do all of the things you need him to do. And so I think he's got solid size and athleticism for the position of cornerback at the next level. He's a really good football player, and the next pro is good feet, instincts, and feel for the position. I was just watching him. He's a guy that understands angles. He's a guy that understands what the essence of being a cornerback is all about. Look, we can all get caught up and wrapped up in the ability to go and make plays on the football and pick it off and force turnovers. And that's great. That's what you want ideally if you're a defensive coordinator. You want to create turnovers in short fields for your offense. And honestly speaking, if you had it any way to do it, you would love your defense to generate turnovers, because turnovers to me are the great equalizer. Turnovers are the difference in a game. We always hear winning the turnover battle every week. That's one of those keys to the game that you can just go ahead and say, all right, you don't have to tell me that. Spare me the win the turnover battle. But turnovers are difference makers in games. And so, yeah, you would love defenses to create turnovers, but there's something to be said, especially if you have a good offense. There's something to be said about just getting off the field on third downs and forcing the other team to punt. And as a cornerback, there's something to be said about just stopping the guy in front of you or the guy in your zone from catching the football. Look, it may not be an interception. It may not be pretty. You may not show up on SportsCenter or Fox Sports 1 during their highlight reel or their package. But guess what? Your deflection on 3rd and 7 to force that team to have to punt is just as impactful as you picking that pass off, depending on where you are on the field, picking that pass off or going for that pass and not picking it off and having the receiver catch it. Just being able to be a defender and a cornerback and knock the football away. This is a guy that I've seen do this at the level that I don't know if I've seen anyone else in this draft at the cornerback position do it as well as he does. I call it playing keep away. He does a phenomenal job of playing keep away. That's the next pro. He got a lot of deflections, man. You watch him and he does a great job of running with receivers after the quarterback extends the play and is rolling out of the pocket. And you know how it's easy to lose a receiver once a quarterback scrambles out of the pocket, because then it becomes helter-skelter, backyard football. There's really no rhyme or reason to what the receiver is doing. A lot of times receivers are told, if the quarterback rolls out, you go up the field, make yourself available. You need to come back to the football, make yourself available. Sometimes sitting down is the best available target for the quarterback, but it's just hard to cover a guy when you don't know where he's going. Tre'Davious White does it as good as anybody. I mean, there's countless plays where I'm seeing him follow a guy across the field. It started out on one side of the formation. He runs a little dragger all the way across the field. Quarterback rolls out, and he goes up the field and is still going towards the sideline, and he still knocks the football away at the last second. He does a really good job of playing keep away. I feel like he's very scheme diverse. That's the next pro. This guy has experience in the slot. He can play out wide. And I think that's another reason why the Bills feel good about him, is that this guy is interchangeable as a piece. You can figure out where you want to play him. And the slot corner is becoming a bigger and bigger deal now because of what teams are doing offensively. Again, it's a passing league now. It's morphed into this league where slot guys win, and they win big, and they especially win on third downs. And that's a crucial down in this league. You need to be able to stop those guys. You need to be able to stop tight ends. They're becoming the new flavor of the month offensively, and so you got to be able to stop those guys. And so the slot corner is becoming a bigger and bigger commodity defensively, and this is a guy that can give you some value there as well. He's an LLCer. You can't knock the football away and play keep away from the receivers if you're not looking, locating, and contesting. And I think Tre'Davious White does that as good as anyone in this draft. Again, he may not pick it off. I saw him with a lot of opportunities to pick passes off that I thought he should have picked off, and he just simply didn't catch the football, but he still kept it away from the wide receiver. Has some ball skills, did have 6 career interceptions, but this guy's a 4-year starter at LSU. You would expect more ball production than 6, especially when I watched him drop 4 interceptions on tape. So I know that he could have easily had double figures in interceptions if he had better hands, but he does have ball skills. They're there. I'd just like to see him catch the football a little bit better. Will tackle. He'll come in there. He'll mix it up. He's not the most physical nor aggressive tackler, but he'll get guys on the ground and he'll get results. And so we'll talk about the physicality or lack thereof a little bit later on. But again, he will stick his nose in there. He will be a participant, a willing participant, and he'll get guys on the ground for the most part when he does come up and try to make a tackle. 4-year starter is another pro. Again, in the SEC, up against top-level talent. You're talking to Amari Cooper, those types of players year in, year out. It's going to sharpen you. Iron sharpens iron. He was in the SEC for 4 years, so there's experience there. And that's why I feel like he's such a polished corner, is because he played the position for 4 whole entire seasons in the SEC, and he did it at a very high level. Special teams value, also can double as a punt returner if need be. This is a guy that returned 3 touchdowns, punt returns for touchdowns throughout his career. So he's a guy that can bring that to the table as well in a pinch. I'd like to think that there would be other guys that you could put back there before Tre'Davious White. But if you needed him to go back there and give you a spark or a shot in the arm, I think he'd be able to do that, and he'd be willing to do that for you as well. You go to his cons. He's a little grabby. I think down the field sometimes, because he lacks that game-changing speed and the great makeup speed that you see from elite level corners, I think sometimes he just feels the need to, let me put my hands on this guy. Let me hold him and not let him separate from me as his ball is getting near. He does a really good job of taking his hands off of the receiver once the ball gets there, but it's those, first 5 seconds before the ball's arrival where you're like, hey, he's grabbing. You're letting him get away with a little bit of extra holding there. I don't know if he's going to get away with that at the next level. I saw a couple of plays where he should have been flagged for holding. I don't think he's going to get away with it at the next level. He needs to tone that down just a tad. He can be beat off the line of scrimmage. I watched him get beat off the line of scrimmage because he's not the type of guy that wants to really lay hands on you. He's one of those guys that will press but bail at the same time and not put his hands on the receiver. He's not really looking to jam you. And rightfully so. He's 5'11", 192. These receivers, they're 6'2", they're 225, they're 215, they're 212, they're 209. Even if this guy in front of him is 203, he's still got essentially an 11-pound advantage over a guy like Tre'Davious White. And most of these SEC receivers are huge. They're 6'2", they're 6'3". So you don't want to get in these guys' faces and put hands on them and then have them toss you aside like a rag doll. But you can break them off at the top of your release And he'll go flying. I've seen him open up his hips the wrong way. I've seen him fall down. I've seen receivers gain the advantage on the upper hand. I've seen him get run by because he's started off and open up the wrong way. So I think you can beat him off the line of scrimmage. He does a really good job of getting back into the play on the short to intermediate stuff. But if you're going vertical, you beat him off the line of scrimmage, he's basically got. Lacks true physicality. That's the final pro or con, excuse me. And this is actually in both the run game and as a corner down the field. I watched a receiver, a 6'4" guy from Texas A&M, just absolutely shoved the draws off of him. And really it was offensive pass interference. It was OPI. But he just gave him a little elbow. And Tre'Davious White went flying and he catches the football. And I'm like, wow. It was subtle. They didn't call it. And I'm like, wow, why did you go flying so far? And it's just, he's not a guy that is overly physical. You can out-muscle him for the football. He's a guy that will compete down the field for 50-50 balls. That same receiver, 2 plays later, they threw a jump ball to him in the end zone. And he fought him. And this guy's 6'4". And we're talking about a 5'11" corner. And he fought him. He jumped at the point of attack at the height of that football being thrown up there to go grab. He went up there and he knocked it away. So he will compete. But I watched him get devoured in the run game. He's a guy that when he tackles, you can drag him along for an extra 3 or 4 yards. He really doesn't want to get involved in tackling anybody unless he has to, which, again, I'm fine with that at the cornerback position. Not all corners have the same mentality in terms of tackling, as long as you're willing to go in there when you have to, and he's willing to go in there when he has to, but he's not looking to do that if he doesn't have to. So it is what it is with Tre'Davious White. I just don't think he's a very physical football player. I think he's more of a finesse corner than he is a physical corner that'll get in your face and be aggressive. And so in the first round, 27th overall selection, LSU cornerback Tre'Davious White for me is a triple. I just feel like he's missing that oomph, that it factor that takes him from a really good corner to a great corner. I don't think he possesses that. I don't think he has the makeup speed if you beat him initially on a vertical route. I think he's a guy that is okay, but I don't think he is, there are a lot of really good corners in this draft. I think we didn't talk about Tre'Davious White because we felt like there were other guys that had better measurables or, had a little bit more talent. And I think that was accurate. If he would have slipped to the second round, that would have probably been a better spot for him to be taken. But he's a good corner. He can cover. The Bills got themselves a good football player. Let's see how they utilize him in Buffalo. As we go to the second round, 37th overall selection, East Carolina wide receiver Zay Jones is the selection. This is a guy that I've already broken down in the Draft Prospects 101 series. So if you're looking for a thorough breakdown of Zay Jones and other prospects that I broke down prior to the draft, be sure to check out that playlist on the Louie T Network, 2017 NFL Draft Prospects 101 series. But I'll say this about Zay Jones. To me, he was one of the better receivers in this draft. This was not a deep wide receiver draft class. I felt like the ones that needed to go in the first round went in the first round. And I thought after that core 3 of guys that were first round selections, I thought he was the next best receiver. And if he would have snuck into the first round, wouldn't have had any problems with it. I thought that his whole process, the combine, the East-West game, and all of those things, the practices, I thought he was phenomenal in all of that. And it really helped his draft stock because on tape, you really didn't see how fast he was. And then he goes to the combine and runs a sub-4 540 and he catches everything, which you knew he had the ability to do. To me, his importance on this team is huge because you lose Robert Woods in the offseason to the Los Angeles Rams, who was in effect, de facto, your number 1 receiver because you could never count on Samuel Watkins to stay healthy over the last couple of years. But I think Zay Jones coming in gives you the flexibility of a guy that you feel like can carry that load if, say, Samuel Watkins isn't able to stay healthy. But I'm going to say this, and I'm adamant, and I've said it a number of times, including his Draft Prospects 101 breakdown. I don't think he's a number 1 wide receiver in this league. All right. But I think he is the upper echelon number 2 when we're talking. And that's why Samuel Watkins' health is imperative to the success of Zay Jones as a number 2. Because if you ask Zay Jones to be a number 1, then I think you start running into some problems. But if you ask Zay Jones to be a number 2 and Samuel Watkins can take over and be the number 1 that you drafted him to be, now you're talking about one of the best tandems in the league at the receiver position. That's what this could turn out to be for you if you can get Samuel Watkins to stay healthy. And I think that's going to be the key here. If Sammy Watkins is healthy, Zay Jones is going to be a stud. If Sammy Watkins isn't, and now you have to ask more of Zay Jones, it may affect how good he is as a receiver in this league. So we'll see what Zay Jones, I love this selection. I love the football player here. I love the bloodlines. I love everything he brings to the table. In the second round, 37th pick overall, East Carolina wide receiver, Zay Jones. Is it up? He's hit deep. Out of here. So don't run from me. To get this kind of football player in the second round, the Bills were smart to trade up and go get the guy that they coveted there at 37. Thought it was a great move on their part. I think they're getting a really good football player. And if Sammy Watkins can just stay healthy, Zay Jones will eat number 2 corners in this league alive. Whether you put him in the slot or you put him out wide, he's going to eat number 2 corners for breakfast if he's allowed to do so. You move on to the next second round pick, 63rd selection overall, Temple offensive lineman Dion Dawkins is the selection. 6'4", 314 pounds is where we start. Size and length are his first pros. You're talking about a guy that's 6'4", 314, but 35-inch arms. Wow. Okay. He's got vines for arms. So right then and there, that tells you this guy can still play on the outside. You know, a lot of times this was not a strong offensive tackle draft class. He was one of those guys that after the top 2 or 3 were mentioned, he was the next guy that people started to talk about. And people think that he can still play outside. And the Bills have a void on their offensive line at the tackle position, at right tackle. And so you're thinking maybe this is one of those guys that potentially could come in there and compete for that job. But if not, you kick him inside the guard. And I think he's going to be a guy that's going to probably start for you in week 1 if healthy and he goes through all the camps and they like what they see. It's a guy that could probably play guard for you, if not right tackle. But that length allows him to stay a viable candidate outside at tackle. Solid movement skills. I don't think he's the greatest athlete in the world, but I think he does move well for his size. And I think he does have some lateral agility that allows him to be a solid offensive lineman as a tackle. I prefer him as a guard, and I'll tell you why a little bit later on as we get to his cons. But I feel like he's got good enough movement skills that if you wanted to put him at right tackle, you might be able to get away with it. What you have to realize now is it's not like it used to be along the offensive line where you could hide a right tackle because the left tackle was the premium position and that's where all the elite pass rushers were. The teams are smart now. They move guys around, and a lot of teams have 2 good pass rushers, and if you have a funky right tackle, they'll just take their elite pass rusher and they'll move him over your funky right tackle. So you can't hide guys that can't pass protect or have slow feet or don't get out of their stance fast enough or have trouble with speed or they have trouble with power. You can't hide guys anymore. So we'll talk about that a little bit later on. Nasty disposition and competitor. I love his disposition. He's one of those guys that'll dump you on your neck and then, jump on top of you, like pancake you a little extra syrup on top. He's a guy that's extremely physical, especially in the run game. Really nasty disposition on and off the field. It got into an altercation. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But I love the competitor in Dion Dawkins. He's one of those guys that you can tell actually gives a damn. He cares about football. He cares about his performance on the field. He's one of those guys that if he gives up a sack or he has a holding penalty, he's upset. He's mad at himself. Okay, there's a play where he gives up a sack. And look, on that particular play, he got out of his stance late. The Penn State defensive end got a great jump. And he beats him around the corner and he gets the sack. And Dion Dawkins is pissed. He's waving his hand. Damn! He's mad. And, there are a lot of guys that they give up a sack and they got that all shucks, goofy, all shucks. That goofy look like, sorry, all shucks, gave up a sack. Doggone it, gave up a sack. No, that's not Dion Dawkins. He's pissed off. There's another play in that same Penn State game where he's called for blocking the back, and it was a foolish play on his part because that quarterback was going to get rid of that football before he took that shot. He didn't need Deion Dawkins to deliver the blow that he did and pick up that foolish, unnecessary blocking the back penalty and negates like a 45-yard touchdown pass on a beautiful play by the quarterback and receiver. And he was upset at himself. He was upset at himself. A lineman tried to come over and console him like, man, it's okay. He didn't want any part of that. Like, no, I got to be better than that. So he's a guy that has passion, plays with his emotions on his sleeve. Sometimes, of course, sometimes they can get you in trouble, but I love guys, especially along the offensive line, that play with a chip on their shoulder. And he's an ex-defensive lineman, and he plays the game with the nasty disposition of a defensive lineman. He's a gritty run blocker. Again, he'll get physical. He'll move guys, create space in the run game. He anchors well as a pass protector. He does absorb contact very well, able to sit down and stop bull rushes from getting to the quarterback. So I think he does a lot of the things that you need him to do well enough to survive out wide as a tackle if need be. But I, again, prefer him inside, and I'll tell you why. But he does have versatility as a guard or tackle. Was a 3-year starter at Temple at left tackle. That's the final pro, is that he's got experience playing the left tackle position at a very high level. Gives you some versatility to be able to kick inside at guard or stay outside at tackle. And I think the Bills love that versatility because it gives them options as to whether he can go outside and play right tackle or kick inside and play guard. As we go to his cons, struggles a bit in space, both in the run and the pass game. This is why I feel like he's a guard and not a tackle. You can beat him with pure speed. You can beat him with hand usage off the edge. I think sometimes his feet aren't fast enough. I don't think he gets out of his stance fast enough at times. He's a little raw at certain points, and there's some technique issues and things he needs to clean up. One being his hands are too wide. That's the next con. His hands get out too wide. He gets grabby. There's times where he's hog tying guys on pass rush situations where that could get called at the next level. I just think he needs to have better hand placement and more be more technically sound. I don't think his punch is where it needs to be, which gets him in trouble. So again, he can be grabby because his hands are too wide. He's a guy that can struggle in space. I've seen guys beat him out at the tackle position around the edge. I've seen guys beat him on twists and stunts where they come with a nice tight twist, looping around on that stunt, and he's just not equipped athletically enough to move and get there and stop that from beating him. And then he's a guy that, to me, in the run game, when he gets to the second level, doesn't redirect well, so it's easy for him to miss out in space. So I think he's more of a guy that is a guard for me. I want him in tight, quarters, being a phone booth mauler more so than out as a guy on an island blocking an elite athletic edge rusher. I just would prefer him to be inside with the big nasties. And finally, the 2015 nightclub incident outside of a Philadelphia club. There was assault that may have taken place. He was not suspended for it, but did have to go through some counseling and some classes for that. I told you he's an aggressive guy on the field and potentially off it. So hopefully that's not something you got to worry about moving forward. Maybe I'm hoping that he can handle himself and use better discretion off the field than he did that night in Philadelphia in March in 2015. But nonetheless, in the second round, 63rd overall selection, Temple offensive lineman Deion Dawkins for me is a triple. The versatility is what I really like here, because as this Buffalo Bills team goes, they're going to need offensive linemen. In this league, you got to have good O-line play. And whether he's at tackle or at guard, I think he's going to be able to help this Bills team at either one of those positions and be a damn good one for them for a few years. So I like that versatility, and I like that pick for the Buffalo Bills. As we move on to their next selection, 2 5th-round picks followed by a 6th rounder to wrap up their draft. And I like these 2 5th-round selections a lot. And start with the 5th-round selection, 163rd pick overall, Boston College linebacker Matt Milano is the selection. His first pro, aggression and athleticism. This is a guy that plays the game like his hair is on fire on every single snap. His tape was so much fun to watch. It's fun to watch guys just run around and really look like they enjoy the game of football. Because I enjoy watching guys that enjoy playing the game, and you can tell they enjoy it. I think that's why we all loved Brett Favre, is because we knew Brett Favre loved playing the game of football. And you can always tell when a guy genuinely loves the game. Okay, and watching Matt Milano, you can tell he loves the game of football. Athleticism, 4'6", 740, which is great for an inside linebacker. 24 reps of 2 1/4, one of the best benches of any linebacker at the combine. 10.5 broad jump, shows the explosion that he possesses, and this is a guy that can run. Speaking of which, outstanding range and closing burst is the next pro. You watch this guy go sideline from sideline. He's shooting gaps. He's making plays in the backfield. He's knocking guys out of bounds. He's lighting guys up as a gunner on special teams. You name it, he's doing it. And you see the closing speed. You see the range. And you're like, wow, I'm watching this guy cover receivers 35 yards down the field, step for step, in the hip pocket, looking back, locating and contesting the football. And I'm like, are you kidding me? That's a receiver he's running down the field with Wake Forest, 35 yards down the field. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me that he's running 40 yards down the field with a running back and looking back and making a play on a football? Are you kidding me that he's dropping 30 yards down the field at an angle underneath a corner route and making a play on a football? Are you kidding me? No, you're not kidding me. That's what this guy brings to the table. I'm going to tell you right now, your new head coach, Sean McDermott, had his hands all over this selection, because this is the type of guy that he had routinely in Carolina, the last of which was Shaq Thompson. When we all questioned why the Panthers taking Shaq Thompson, again, it's a passing league. Tight ends are running rampant all over the field now. They're more skilled and athletic than ever. The slot guys are becoming more of a nuisance. You need smaller, faster, quicker, more adept linebackers at dropping into coverage. And that's what Shaq Thompson was for that Carolina Panthers defense under Sean McDermott. And that's what Matt Milano, in my mind, is going to be for this Buffalo Bills defense. He's an effective blitzer. Okay, a guy that will come off the edge out of nowhere, light you up. 6.5 sacks a season ago. This is a guy that can and will get to the quarterback. I think he times it up really well. And he's a guy that's not just going to hammer into a running back. He's going to give him a little shake and a shimmy and see if he can't still get to the quarterback. So this is a guy that is an effective blitzer in my mind. Tremendous coverage linebacker. I think this is his biggest pro. Along with the special teams value that you get with this guy is his ability, if nothing else, if this guy's not a 3-down linebacker, and I'm not sure if he is or not, I think you're going to give him every opportunity to prove that he's not. But even if he's not, this guy's going to be an exceptional sub-package nickel linebacker for you. Day one. Okay, he's going to come in and be able to run with tight ends and some receivers out of the slot and running backs out of the backfield. So worst case scenario, you're going to get something out of this guy in sub packages for sure, because he's so good in not only zone drops, but as a man-to-man coverage linebacker, I think this guy is outstanding as well. Awareness. This is a guy that just is extremely aware, not only when he's in coverage at looking back for the football, which I think a lot of linebackers panic and don't look back. He looks back for the football, but he's also aware of play action fake and bootlegs. Those things don't confuse him. They don't throw him off kilter. He's not getting lost in the sauce. He's a guy that is pretty aware. Oh, this is a screen. I see what you're trying to do to me. It's a screen. I sniff your screen out, and I'm coming to go get the ball carrier. So he's a guy that is extremely aware on the football field. He's comfortable in space. I really don't need to elaborate on that any more than I already have. I told you he's running down the field with receivers and tight ends in space. He's dropping in coverage. He's getting great depth. He's flipping his hips. He's extremely mobile and comfortable out in space. And finally, he's a special teams demon. Like I said, worst case scenario. All right, worst case scenario, he's a sub-package linebacker and a guy that is going to stand out like a sore thumb on special teams. 24 special teams tackles over the life of his career. Mind you, this is a starter we're talking about as well. And a guy that blocked 3 kicks while at Boston College. So you're talking about a guy that is doing some of everything. To me, he's a football player. Now, above all else, you look at Matt Milano and what do you say to yourself? God damn it, he's a football player. You need these kinds of guys on your roster as we go to his cons. The first one is obvious. It's his size. He's 6 feet, 223 pounds. I told you the NFL is going to the smaller, more mobile and agile linebacker, but you still want guys with size. 223 is extremely light. But again, there's a niche that has been carved out in this league for guys like Matt Milano, who's an ex-safety that plays the game with reckless abandon. I love it, but his size is a detriment to him, especially in the run game. When offensive linemen contact him, it's hard for him to do anything. Needs to stack and shed better. I'd love to see him use his hands and extend his arms out a lot quicker to give himself a chance against these much bigger offensive linemen. And finally, he's a leg hunter who doesn't see what he's hitting necessarily a lot of the time. Loves to go down low and get you in your legs, which I don't have a problem with, as long as you get the guy on the ground. But there are times where he'll blindly dive at the guy's legs and miss, and that'll allow the guy to pick up. I saw him do it to Bucky Hodges. Again, Bucky Hodges is 6'6". Okay, he's a big guy. You know you're at a disadvantage. I don't blame you for wanting to go low. Just make sure you go and you wrap up low, and he's not doing that. He's looking to cut guys down, shoot the cuffs, and get them on the ground. And sometimes you need to just wrap guys up. So with that being said, though, man, I love this pick. 5th round, 163rd pick. Boston College linebacker Matt Milano for me is a triple. This is great value in the 5th round. These are the types of guys that you build your roster around. Again, core special teamer, sub-package linebacker. If nothing else, you know you're getting value here in the 5th round. Love the way this guy plays the game of football. He was durable at Boston College. He was on the field for 94% of their snaps. These are the types of guys that are going to help you build a core foundation in Buffalo as you go on to the next 5th round pick. And I told you I loved both of them. Here's the next one, 171st overall selection. Pick quarterback Nathan Peterman is the selection. I remember when I first was going through this process of looking at players, there's a Bills fan out there that I talk to all the time, and he was like, "Hey Lou, man, have you checked out my man Nathan Peterman yet?" And I'm like, "Nah, I haven't checked him out. I've looked at some quarterbacks. He's kind of down the list. I expect him to get drafted, but I've watched him live. The Clemson game comes to mind, but I'm like, I haven't really studied him." He said, "Man, you need to take a look at him, man. You need to take a look at him because I think he's legit. I'd love for the Bills to take him." Yeah, I said, okay, that's cool. And it just so happens that his Bills actually did take Nathan Peterman, and there are a lot of similarities. You hear the Kirk Cousins comparison. Man, are there a lot of similarities here between the two quarterbacks as we jump into his breakdown. Sneaky athleticism is the first pro. 4'8", 240. The guy can run, man. He's one of those guys that is extremely mobile. Things break down on 3rd and 7. Everyone's in man-to-man coverage with their back turned. He will take off and run for 13 yards in a first down. He's got that kind of capability. I love his ability to slide as well. Doesn't take stupid risks or shots. And his athleticism is underrated. It allows him to run bootleg and play action fake effectively. It allows him to extend plays with his legs to make throws outside of the pocket. He does a lot of good things with that sneaky athleticism. Pocket presence. To me, he may have the best pocket presence of any quarterback in this draft. A lot of these guys, these younger quarterbacks or these mobile quarterbacks, are looking to bail at first trouble. If the first read isn't there or the first flash of color that isn't their own, they're ready to get the hell out of Dodge and use their legs. And this is a guy that will manipulate the pocket. He'll just reshuffle the feet. He'll sidestep, reshuffle the feet, reset, and boom, he's looking down the field and he's connecting with a target. I saw him do some things against Clemson where he gets outside of the pocket and he has to reset his feet quickly because he's going to take a hit. But to deliver the football accurately, he's going to have to reshuffle and reset his feet. And he does. And it's a thing of beauty. And this guy manipulates the pocket better than I think just about every quarterback in this particular draft class. And not only that, it's a guy that played in a pro-style offense at Pitt. He's played in multiple different offenses with different schemes. So to me, he's got the ability to run a pro-style offense. He can come in, call an entire NFL play, proper verbiage in the huddle right now, which is something that you can't say for a lot of these quarterbacks who are looking over to the sideline for a picture or, you know, the coach to tell them what play to run. This is a guy that can come in and actually call an NFL play right now. But then don't mistake him for a guy that can't run a spread or a read option attack, because because they ran a very complex and diverse offense in 2016 under a new offensive coordinator in Pitt, and they were doing a lot of shifts and jet sweeps and little triple option tosses on shovel passes and things of that nature. And he can handle all that stuff. And again, he's still mobile enough to run all of that stuff. So I think in Buffalo, with that Tyrod Taylor package where you're running and you're doing a lot of spread, this is a guy that can come in and run all of those things and be effective, but also switch it up and run some pro style under the center type of stuff as well. So he's very, very diverse and allows you to do a number of different things, can run a lot of different offenses. To me, he's got the arm strength necessary, and probably even more important is his hand size. At 10-inch hands, I don't talk about size of hands very often, but in Buffalo, this is where it kind of comes into play, because you know it's going to snow at some point. You know it's going to be cold as hell. And you also know it's going to be windy. It's Buffalo. It's Orchard Park, New York. You know once November hits, the weather is going to take a severe turn for the worse. And you could just show up in 6 inches of snow randomly on a Sunday afternoon. And oh, by the way, the wind can be gusting and howling. And you know those swirling winds in Buffalo, you have to be able to grip the football and throw tight spirals that cut through that wind. And I think a guy like Nathan Peterman can do exactly that with those 10-inch hands. Accuracy, inside and outside of the pocket, has been something that I've watched with Peterman. Every now and again, his passes will sail on him. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But in terms of accuracy, I watched this man zing it in there, give his receivers not only a chance to catch it, but catch it in stride and get yards after the catch. And this is inside and outside of the pocket. He's a guy that also did some trick videos on YouTube. So in order to do trick shots and all kinds of things that he's doing with the football, you have to be extremely accurate. You see that transfer over to the field. He's a very accurate thrower of the football when it is not sailing on him. He's a mentally tough guy and very competitive. That's the next pro and the final pro. To do what he had to do throughout his career, to go to Tennessee initially, to not have it work, to be benched in favor of Josh Dobbs, not get your job back, to transfer to Pitt, and then go there and really reignite your career, it takes mental toughness. I've seen many a quarterback play 2 or 3 years one place and finish up their career somewhere else, and it's a really lackluster finish to their career, and it's really ho-humish. I mean, I'm thinking of L.A.B for Florida this past year, who really had a chance to do some great things, and he's L.A.B, okay? What do you want from him? He leaves Purdue, he comes over to Florida, and they had a good enough team for them to do some big things, and he just couldn't get them over the hump because he's not good enough. To see Nathan Peterman come over, face the adversity that he did in his early stages of his career in Tennessee, then go to Pitt and really defy the odds and play good football, that takes some mental toughness. And then he's a really big competitor. I think a lot of times when we think of Kirk Cousins and guys like Tim Tebow, who are very religious and they're good guys and they smile all the time, you take their kindness for weakness. And don't think for 1 second that a Kirk Cousins or a Nate Peterman won't stab you in your heart. Okay, they won't eat your heart right out of your chest. Reach in there like Dumb and Dumber, grab your heart out and eat it for dinner. All right, he's got that kind of dog in him. And there's one play in my mind that sticks out like a sore thumb. They're playing against Virginia Tech, and they throw a back pass. He throws a throwback pass. Where he throws it to a receiver coming out of the backfield who's going to throw it back to him out of the backfield. And he catches the football. He knows he's about to take a shot. There's a safety coming over to lay the lumber on him. And he lowers his shoulder and knocks that safety down and then gets up. And he never loses his feet. All right, so the safety thinks he's going to light this, which he should have lit the quarterback up. Instead, Nathan Peterman gives him a shoulder, knocks the safety down, then walks and stands over him and looks down at him like, hey man, don't think because I'm a quarterback I'm soft, boy. And then he had the presence of mind to, after he disrespected him by putting his nuts in his face, he then puts his hands up. I was like, I didn't do anything. Let me let this young man up, man. And so you got a little bit of Christian activity, and then you got a little bit of asshole asshole, and I love it. He's got that competitive drive. I love it. You got to have that dog in you at the quarterback position because you're going to take some shots, and you got to be able to say, all right, that's cool. You got me this time. I'm going to get you back. And so I like Nathan Peterman a lot. You go to his cons, however. He needs to make decisions faster. I think there are times where there's some throws there where he waits until guys come open sometimes. I think he can make some decisions faster, pull the trigger a little bit faster. There are some plays where I see guys coming open. He's staring at that receiver. It's not like he's going through the progressions and he just missed him. There's a play against Clemson where the slot receiver's winning on a corner route, and I think he should pull the trigger. He doesn't. He ends up tucking it and running. They score a touchdown on the next play, but he could have thrown that touchdown the play prior. There's another play against Virginia Tech, back of the end zone, late in that ball game. They're trailing by 10. He ends up throwing a touchdown pass to that receiver running a slant in the back of the end zone, but he should have thrown it sooner. Like 2 plays prior, that same receiver was running a slant, and the play was going to get broken up if not picked off because he waited and he was open initially, and then he pulled the trigger a little bit later, but it gets knocked down at the line of scrimmage. I think that was a good thing for Nathan Peterman on that particular play. Just needs to make decisions faster. I think he'll be fine, especially his arm is good. It's good enough. It's not elite. So you need to make those decisions just a little bit sooner. Ball tends to sail on him. If you watch him in the East-West Shrine game, Zay Jones, who at the time, of course, they didn't know they would ultimately end up being teammates. Again, they were teammates in the East-West game, is wide open in the back of the end zone. Easy touchdown, pitch and catch. And like I told you with Nathan Peterman, sometimes the ball tends to sail. This particular one sails on him, and that's all footwork. That can be cleaned up at the next level with time and patience. But the ball sailed on him. Zay Jones makes a tremendous catch. They don't have replay at the East-West game, and so they ruled it incomplete. It was really a touchdown, if you ask me. Nonetheless, Peterman had him wide open in the back of the end zone. No one around. Should have been an easy touchdown, and he threw it high because his ball tends to sail because his footwork just needs a little bit of work. More touch. I'd love to see him take some sauce off. Everything, I feel like everything's got sauce on it. All right? Everything doesn't need hot sauce to go, man. Take a little bit of that sauce off of that, man. Just every now and again, you put a little bit of extra pepper, a little bit of spices, and you can pour some sauce on it if you like. But when you're throwing it underneath to the tight end who's out in the flats, when you're throwing it to a guy coming across the formation that's running out of, you don't need to put that sauce on it, man. Don't make it hard on these guys. Guys got it skipping through their hands. Take a little bit off. A little bit of touch never hurt nobody, man. Take some of that sauce off to go. And finally, protect the rock. He's not a high interception guy. Smart football player, does a good job of taking care of the ball, but he does some really risky things. I watched him against Virginia Tech fumble the ball twice. You got to know your surroundings. You got to know, okay, I might take a shot here, cover the football up. He was stripped of it twice. Once in the red zone, you can't do that when we have a scoring opportunity. Luckily enough, his center was able to pounce on the football. They got both of those fumbles back, but you got to take care of the football. He's one of those guys in the pocket, about to get sacked. He wants to make a play, shovel the football to a close receiver. Sometimes you can get in trouble doing that. Just be mindful, take care of the football. But nonetheless, 5th round, 171st pick overall, pick quarterback Nathan Peterman for me is a triple. It's a really good pick, and we don't know the future of Tyrod Taylor and how much longer he's going to be in Buffalo. All right, for the foreseeable future. I don't know what this team thinks of Cardale Jones, who they selected last year in the 2nd round. All I know is that Nathan Peterman is going to have a chance to come in and compete for what? I don't know. Maybe for the backup quarterback job in his rookie season. Maybe he'll get it because, again, it's a new coaching staff. They have no ties to Cardale Jones and no loyalty to him. They weren't in the draft room for that selection. They know Nathan Peterman. They had their hands in on that selection. And let me tell you right now, he's got the skill set, the mindset, and the moxie and the poise to be an NFL starter, just like Kirk Cousins was when he was selected in 2012 by the Washington Redskins out of Michigan State. And they were coached by the same head coach, Pat Narduzzi, and he said, boy, Nathan Peterman reminds me a lot of Kirk Cousins. I see why. You go to the final pick in this Bills draft, 6th round, 195th overall selection. Boise State linebacker Tanner Vallejo is the selection. Athleticism is the first pro, 4.67. Much like Matt Milano, another one of these guys that can run sideline to sideline. Identical 40 time at the combine, 4.67. Solid tackler, breaks down in space as a tackler, is also the next pro. He does a really good job of breaking down in space. A lot of these guys that run sideline to sideline and come downhill with a level of speed don't break down, and it's easy to make them miss out in space. A simple jab step or a misdirection where they go inside after looking like they're going to plant and go outside is enough to make them miss. Not with Tanner Vallejo. He does a really good job of coming under control, breaking down, squaring a guy up, and getting him down on the ground. He's got good closing bursts. Another one of these guys, if you don't block him at the line of scrimmage, he's going to get through a hole, come into the backfield, make a tackle for loss, and also out in space, they dump it down to a receiver or they dump it down to a running back out of the backfield in the flats. He's one of those guys that comes, closes the distance very quickly and makes that a minimal gain. Plays with a level of physicality. He's a tough guy. Speaking of which, he's tough, man. Tough as nails. Played through an injury for the better part of 2016. A lot of people said you could tell that he had something wrong with his wrist. Had a brace on both arms at one point in 2016, so he was dealing with arm issues on both of his arms and ultimately had to have surgery on his wrist, which caused him to miss the remainder of the 2016 season after fighting through all of that pain. So he's a pretty tough guy, a selfless guy that puts the team before himself. And so you like those kinds of guys on your roster as well. Solid coverage linebacker, another one of these guys. I don't think he is as good in man-to-man coverage like a Matt Milano is, but in zone drops, I think Tanner Vallejo does a really good job of getting depth, keying quarterbacks' eyes, playing guys in his zone, and then rallying up and making tackles off of that. And then finally, he's a special teams guy as well, gives you some special teams value, 2 block kicks in his career. So again, another one of these guys that can be a gunner, that can go down, make some plays, and get to the ball carrier on special teams. His cons, his size, 6'1", 228. Again, that's what this league is turning into. And at worst, another nickel linebacker here that can run and help you in that facet of the game. Struggles to keep offensive linemen from washing him. Again, when you're 6'1", 228, those things generally tend to happen. Offensive lineman who has you by at least 80 pounds, sometimes 90 pounds, gets to you, contacts you, is able to move you out of the way. And then finally, his injury history. I talked about the injuries that he had in 2016, and he's been a guy that's dealt with some injuries. Both arms were injured, his wrist was injured, had to have surgery on his wrist, missed 5 games in total in 2016, missed 2 more the year prior. So this is a guy that has dealt with injuries throughout his career. Really hasn't been the same guy since 2014 when he had a breakout season when everybody was really saying that this guy's the next big thing at the linebacker position if he can just stay healthy. Well, he didn't. And so they haven't seen the production. We haven't seen the production since his 2014 sophomore season when he was a stud for Boise State. In any event, in the 6th round, 195th overall selection, Boise State linebacker Tanner Vallejo for me is a double. There's some value here. There's some special teams value, sub-package value. It's a guy that can cover, that can run, that can tackle. Like him, I think he's a solid acquisition and a guy that's going to have a chance to compete. For a Bills team that doesn't have a lot at the linebacker position, he's a guy that's going to get an opportunity to compete at linebacker. So that's the Bills draft, and it's an impressive one. And like I said, you look at the quality of this draft from start to finish, and I thought they did a wonderful job of just going in, trading up when they needed to, plucking the players that they felt like they needed to pluck out of this draft, and then getting the hell out of Dodge. You don't need to have 11 draft picks to have an effective draft, if you ask me. Some teams do that, and they love that. The Seahawks do it every year, 8, 9, 10, 11 picks every single year, and they do a good job of developing talent. I want 6, I want 7 picks. I want to go in, get the guys I want. You shouldn't have any less than 6 picks. Anything less than 6 is uncivilized to me. But 6 is that magical number for me. 7 is good. You don't need any more than 7 players to me. And so I like this haul. Let's tally up their score quickly and get out of here. They didn't start off with a home run, but instead a triple. That would be the theme of the day for the Bills, as they had 4 triples in this draft, netting them 2 triples bonuses. They did have a home run in the second round with wide receiver Zay Jones, who I think, if a healthy Samuel Watkins is accompanying him, could be one of the better tandems in the league at the receiver position down the road. And then you have a double to wrap up your draft with Tanner Vallejo. So you've got a home run. You've got 6 triples because of the 2 bonuses with the triples, with the 4 triples initially, and then the double. You tally all of that up. That is an amazing score for the Buffalo Bills. I mean, just think about it. You look at this draft, 24 points divided by the 6 picks made by the Bills. It's a home run for the Buffalo Bills. That's right. A 4.0, a home run for the Buffalo Bills in the 2017 NFL Draft Wrap-Up Series. It's a effective draft, and those bonuses, they kick in. And when you keep hitting triples, you're hitting for a hell of an average. That's what the Bills did in this draft. It's going to do it for the Buffalo Bills in their 2017 NFL Draft Wrap-Up Series breakdown. If it happens in the National Football League, whether big or small, we cover it all here in the lab room. Come back and join your man Louie T as I continue to break down anything. And in the National Football League, I just got one question for you. Who's next?